calories, it's still 2 grams of protein, 15 grams of carb, 1 gram of fat. If you have that same exact food at 7 o'clock in the evening, it's still 77 calories, 2 grams of protein, 15 grams of carbs, and 1 gram of fat. So I share all this to say, we're talking about fasting here, but remember, what we learned last week on carbs, fats, protein, calories, what we've been talking about for a while on nutrition still stands. Fasting is a great tool for fat loss, but all it really does is help you to get into a calorie deficit even easier, right? The biggest thing that fasting to help you out with weight loss is kind of like what you were talking about, April, is you had a great night of sleep on Monday because you didn't eat as much as you normally would, or maybe you stopped eating a little bit beforehand. So fasting, what it's more of is it helps you feel better through the process. It might make a calorie deficit easier to achieve, but don't get it twisted. Fasting does have some built-in fat-burning benefits, but all of the weight loss actually comes in from the amount of food that you're consuming throughout the week, right? So we'll show some graphs on how that example's in, but I just want to share that because fasting is great, but it's not a magic tool. Just because you eat 2 meals a day doesn't mean you're going to lose weight, right? You could still eat 4,000 calories in each meal, and you'd be gaining weight with that. So that at least gives a little bit of a foundation. So we're going to go over fasting for weight loss. What I want to specifically talk about with you guys is one of the simple reasons that fasting helps you to be able to lose weight. So the first one is something that, like I just mentioned, you're quite literally just cutting down the time of the day that you're eating, right? If you are only going to be eating for 8 hours of the day, you're no longer consuming for 16 hours of the day. So that's just simple math. It helps you to be able to reduce what you're overall eating. But a second one that is really important to talk about is basically this analogy I've worked out with a few of you guys here, so I'll leave this here. And it's the first of, your body has 2 primary fuel sources that it uses. So the first of these is going to be blood sugar and glycogen in the liver. This is just sugar, glucose, right? Apples, bananas, brown sugar, bread, sugar. Your body's primary fuel source is going to be sugar, glycogen, glucose, whatever frame of the same word that we want to use. This can be easily summarized into sugar, but this is the first fuel source your body will search for at all times. It burns fast and it burns effective, right? So this first fuel source is always being burned throughout the day when we're consuming food. If you top back off on food, you're re-pumping up the supplies of sugar in the body, so your body will always start to tap into that. If you've only ever learned how to burn sugar, your body, when you start to get into fasting, which will get you more fat adapted, and we'll talk about that here in a second, it becomes a little bit more difficult for somebody to fast because maybe if you've been consuming food all the time, your body's constantly used to burning sugar. But your body's second fuel source is going to be your body fat stores. This is like the love handles, right, on the side. This is going to be the different ways that your body will tap into body fat when you fast is phenomenal. It helps you to get deeper into that zone of fat loss, but we kind of have to pass a certain threshold to where you burn through all of your glycogen. So with this, after about 8 to 12 hours of fasting, your body has metabolized all of its available blood sugar and glycogen, and this means that you really don't have your favorite fuel source anymore. So one of the reasons I'm getting you guys to eat 2 meals a day is just so you start to go longer without food and you feel what happens when now you're 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours without food. Kind of like what you notice, it's like you're getting your air put in your tires and it's not going the way that you want and frustration's starting to come up. Yes, that's something to address, that frustration is there, but we also got to take a look at, I might just be more sensitive to this right now because my body is tapping out on the final bits of sugar, right? So it's kind of like if your car only has like 15 or 10 miles to the gallon, it might start to sputter a little bit, right? It might start to have some issues. So it's very similar with our body. As we cut through, there's certain times of the day when you might be burning through the rest of your supply. You're a little bit more irritable. You're a little bit slower. But this is where we want to become adapted to burning body fat as well. And this happens after about that 8 to 12 hour mark of no food. It is debatable on whether or not like you add a little bit of cream to your coffee, or if you have a little bit of calories that like you won't tap into the fat stores the same way. But that's kind of like potato, tomato, like it's not really the biggest deal to search for. But what I do want you guys to get aware of is after you go 8 to 12 hours without food, Your body, for those first 8 to 12, is going to be burning blood sugar and glycogen. After those 8 to 12 hours and beyond, your body starts to dig into your body fat stores. So this is where we are seeing a little bit of an extra fat burning effect coming in from the fasting. I just want to get you guys aware of, though, that it's still calories, calories, calories. Just because you did a full day fast on Monday, but you overate every other day of the week, does not mean you're going to lose weight, right? It just means that that full day fast is going to help you to facilitate the lack of inflammation in the body, the weight loss coming in, but it's still always coming back into calories. But calories aside, this cool phenomenon will start to happen where your body is saying, hey, I'm gonna run off of body fat. And how many of you guys have felt that, where you start to get to 12, 16, even 20 hours into a fast, and you start to just think differently? Your thoughts are a little bit different, maybe for the better, for the worse. Anybody ever notice that? Maybe a little bit more emotional? Okay, cool. That's not always just going to be I'm hangry. There's actual physical mechanisms in the back that are trying to shift into you burning that body fat to make this process easier. If you are not, let me frame it this way. Most people are sugar burners. And what I mean by that is we've lived our whole life just only burning sugar, and we rarely tap into the body fat stores. When you train your body through fasting to become better adapted to burning body fat, you now have taught your body to become a hybrid car, the way God originally designed us. Truthfully, if we have that capability inside of us to use body fat as storage, or not storage, but use body fat as fuel, we should be able to utilize that. But some people, when they get into fasting, might find some issues with that. We had a client, we ran through a 6-week fasting program 3 years ago, who started going into a fast, and she started to pull back on her carbohydrates. Her body broke out in one of the most painful rashes she's ever had. Just red spots all over. She was itchy. It was kind of on fire. And she's like, what's going on? This only happened because I'm changing my diet. And this is something a lot of people call the keto rash, right? Where you start to pull back on carbohydrates, which can happen by going on a ketogenic diet or by fasting, because fasting is the original ketogenic diet, right? It's the original no-carb diet, because you physically are eating no carbs, so you get a lot of the same benefits you go into ketosis when you start to fast. And so with this, her body was freaking out because she'd spent 50 years only burning sugar. She was diabetic as well. So just that kind of gives you a little bit of insight. She'd had so many carbs in her diet for so long that by pulling it back, her body was having adverse effects. So this is why it's really important, as you start to get into fasting, to have an awareness of sugar and fats as you go into it, because that way you can know, all right, maybe I felt a little bit off the other day because all I had were carbs, and maybe I need to increase my dietary fat to make the shift over into burning body fat much easier, because body fat, dietary fat, same kind of chemical makeup on it. So when you teach your body to eat more fats and learn how to digest them well, you are teaching your body to become more fat adapted. Why is this important for weight loss? Well, it just makes sure that as you use fasting as a tool, you're not going to get the same hunger spikes as you used to. You're not going to be frustrated the same way. You're not going to, basically, I used this analogy a while back and I really liked it. And it's when you can teach your body to become more fat adapted for fasting, you're giving less, I almost want to call it holes for the claws of demonic, or even the attack of the enemy, right? What do I mean by that is it's rather than it being 24 hours into a fast and you're oh man, I'm starting to get depressed, or I'm having mood swings, or I want to chop off the head of my coworker because they're just annoying me and I want to eat. Those things start to disappear when you become more fat adapted. They become a lot more mild. You're a lot more adjusted to it, right? So when you actually take the time to let your body just get used to digesting a lot more dietary fat, so this would be coconut oil, olive oil, avocados, butter is a really good example of this, red meat, salmon, so fattier fishes, Brazil nuts, walnuts, cashews. Am I missing anything that's a really good source of fat? Peanuts, yeah, it's kind of like a mix. You grab one there, but yeah. These types of things, when you start to go into more of that category of foods, even like aged cheeses or raw cheeses are really good. Cottage cheese, whole fat yogurt, Greek yogurt, these types of things that are more full fat like that. Full fat milk rather than going for, the 2% or the fat-free milk or 1% like this. Just teaching your body to digest fats a little bit better will make the whole process of fasting much easier. And after you cross that 8 to 12 hour mark, you're going to be able to, just have the whole process be a lot smoother. So in essence, the longer you fast, the longer you're actively burning fat in your body. This combination with a strategic calorie deficit makes losing fat as simple as, cooking pork chops on the grill or just having some good food. I can tell when I wrote this, I was in a pork chop mood. I haven't had pork chops in so long. But here's some other information I want to share with you guys. So one thing is insulin. So there's I haven't shared this with you guys here, but there's some people who believe in the weight loss world that calories don't really play as much of a role as much as like your insulin sensitivity does. Has anyone ever heard that conversation around insulin sensitivity versus like calories? Okay. I'm going to say that it's not as black and white. Calories are very important. Insulin's very important. Fasting is very important. Whenever we get in this dogmatic place to where we're like, it's only one thing can be the benefit, I think that's where we start to get into the issue. So I think it's powerful for us to think about insulin. So beyond switching your body over into a fat burning machine, there's two more huge effects that fasting has. The first one is going to be reduced insulin resistance. And with that, this is one of the biggest effects specifically from intermittent fasting and longer fasting as well. The good news for everybody is that reduced insulin resistance is one of the biggest signs of good health. When you see people in good health, they have a really good level of insulin, or they're insulin sensitive rather than being insulin resistant. High insulin resistance is linked to nearly every single chronic disease. I think I miswrote that. It's insulin sensitivity is one of the biggest signs of good health. You want your body to respond to insulin when it's produced. Just a quick explanation on insulin. It's basically when sugar hits the body, insulin comes on in to help be able to shuttle it wherever it needs to go, right? It might go into the muscles, might go into the different organs, but insulin basically takes carbohydrates and sugar to send it where it needs to go. And you want to be sensitive to insulin because if you are insulin resistant, your body has to crank up the amount of insulin that you're doing to be able to get the same effect. It's like how if you've become so resistant to coffee, you have to do 4 shots of espresso just to feel something versus just having 1 cup of coffee or 1 shot of espresso and actually feeling the impact that it's supposed to. So we would rather have to make less insulin for any sort of project or digestion because that just means the body doesn't have to work as hard. This is why when we get diabetes, people have to take external insulin because their body is just now no longer making enough of it. So they need to throw on something on top of it to increase that level of insulin. So when it comes to fasting, it is phenomenal for getting your insulin sensitivity back where it needs to be. So high insulin resistance is linked to nearly every chronic disease, like I mentioned here, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancer, stroke. Type 1 diabetes is completely different than type 2 diabetes. They're almost 2 completely different issues. So it's just type 2 diabetes. But when you start to see people who have heart disease, cancer, and strokes, you can almost always see insulin resistance is just one of the characteristics that they carry, right? So we can see through fasting, we can really start to lower that, and that'll help out a ton. Some more effects on fasting as well is the ability to increase your HGH production. So HGH is what Sylvester Stallone got busted for crossing the border in Europe for, but it's something that people will take exogenously, but it's also created inside of the body, right? HGH is called human growth hormone. So if you've ever seen bodybuilders with the very distended bellies, they took human growth hormone, which makes everything larger in the body, their muscles and their organs, right? All of the tissues, everything. That's why, they overload it, which is way more than what your body could ever naturally create. Their bellies get distended like that along with their muscles. But HGH is actually a really good hormone for the body as well. It's an anti-aging hormone. It's called the fitness hormone because it plays a huge role in fat loss and muscle building. And there's a study done by the American College of Cardiology that showed these results, that fasting was linked to a 1,300 increase in HGH in women, 1,300% increase in women. And fasting was linked to a 2,000% increase in HGH in men. So it means that when you have higher levels of HGH in the body, it's just very simply put, your ability to burn fat and build muscle get improved a lot. So it is a very good hormone. And even when you increase your natural production by 2,000%, you're getting nowhere near dangerous amounts like people would be doing when they take exogenous human growth hormone. So they're doing much, much higher, tens of thousands percent. But this hormone starts to go in, and it's really, really good. So you might think this is pretty cool. You'll have more HGH to get leaner and have more muscles. That's nice, but here's the thing. Beyond promoting fat loss and muscle gain, HGH is also linked to healing and growth of nearly every tissue in the body. This includes bone, right? So your ability to recover from injuries goes up when you start to fast because HGH starts to increase in the body. Your sex drive goes up, right? So this is great for couples, for intimacy. The increased production of other anabolic hormones. Anabolic just simply means ability to build the body up, right? So different things that will help out with muscle building start to increase. You have increased immune system function, so your ability to respond to disease quicker and faster is increased when you fast and your HGH goes up. How many of you guys have ever noticed when you get sick and you start to get like a flu or a cough, you really don't want to eat? Has anyone ever noticed that? Like, there's a reason for this. The body has a certain amount of energy at any point in time, right? That energy can get diverted to things like thinking, digestion, eating, conversation, so many different things. Digestion happens to take up a lot. The gut is called the second brain, right? So with that, when we can quiet that down, it actually helps when you are getting sick to divert more energy into healing your body. So the old saying of like drink a ginger ale and have like chicken noodle soup when you're sick, that might be nice from a comforting standpoint, but truthfully, one of the best things you can do when you actually get sick is like just to not eat. And yes, you may, if you're trying to build muscle, you may lose a little bit of like muscle in that process. That's fine. Your body will heal up. You'll be able to get everything back. So there's really no worries, but there's a natural design to the body. When you get sick, you want to fast. And, I would assume it's probably because some of these extra benefits that happen. HGH also increases your energy. So people who live more of a fasting lifestyle typically have better energy and smoother energy throughout the day. And I think that's kind of to do with what we talked about, April, which is you have an awareness of what you're sensitive to now. Because you go without for so much, you now know what actually like tanks your energy, makes your sleep worse. So you're more sensitive to those things. So it makes you want to stay more steady and smooth. Also has a lot of benefits to anti-aging and longevity. So fasting will help out promoting muscle growth, higher sex drive, more energy, extra healing and immune system function. Lots of really good stuff. I'm just going to keep digging into here on fasting because even though we're beyond weight loss a little bit, there's some great benefits on fasting for cancer as well. So just a couple quick statistics on this. There are 2 million Americans who are diagnosed with cancer every single year. Both of my parents were one of those. In the early 1900s, 1 in 20 people developed cancer. In the 1940s, 1 in 16 people developed cancer. In the 1970s, 1 in 10 people developed cancer. Today, 1 in 3 people develops cancer. Absolutely insane. And what is the biggest thing that impacts us in this? It's our lifestyle. Right? It's our diet. Your movement plays a huge piece in this, but cancer has gone up a lot, especially as our diets have become less and less natural. So a few more statistics is on average, the typical cancer patient will spend around $50,000 fighting this disease, right? Absolutely crazy. Yeah, that's just average. So, you got skin cancer in there versus like colon cancer versus brain cancer. 2 out of every 3 cancer patients will pass away within 5 years of receiving standard treatment. Absolutely crazy. So my thoughts on this is it makes a lot more sense for us to focus on preventing cancer in the first place than it does trying to treat it when it comes in, right? If we can be preventative versus reactionary, it does a lot. So a little bit of a conversation on cancer cells here. Cancer cells have only one food source and one food source only that they can metabolize, and that is sugar. There's nothing else that a cancer cell can eat. A cancer cell eats sugar. If anybody tries to tell you anything differently, it's really hard to fight the facts on this one. I do think there's a lot to do with cancer does come in, like a spiritual doorway does come in with emotions around cancer. So like grief, anxiety, depression, and things like that. But then we also have to look at what comes with those in terms of our eating. We go to the heavier foods, we go to the sugar, we go to more breads, different styles like that. So I don't think it's just isolated in one thing or another. But sugar is the number one fuel source for this. This was discovered over 80 years ago by Dr. Otto Warburg, who won the Nobel Prize in Physiology for this discovery, yet nobody really talks about it. So it's old knowledge, but we're here trying to treat it with a bunch of radiation in the body that is killing every other cell in the body. And some people have great results with radiation and chemotherapy. I'm not here to say that like that's not an option for some people, but I am here to say that you have a natural cleansing agent inside of you through fasting that can starve the cancer. We've seen people, Grant Eilerson, we had a buddy get diagnosed with cancer at 23. He starved it with his diet. There's no cancer inside of his body. He's a believer now, but he wasn't a believer in that time, so he was really just going after all the natural solutions for it. And I do believe now we can partner up with the Lord and see kind of like, did Ricky say he had cancer? Yeah, Ricky had cancer, right? So like seeing that also starts to, we can see like in the supernatural, we can pray this stuff away, but we have to look at still, how do we partner with this? For those of you guys who were at the conference, right, Pamela, who we prayed over at the end for her knees, you know, we talked about, and is she 80? She's over 80, okay. She's over 80 and she was running around the room, right? Afterwards, her knees had pain beforehand, but we prayed over her, feeling great. But then we talked about, okay, afterwards we got to steward this too, because there's a conversation on that, like, what? Oh, 71. Okay. Yeah, we over-exaggerated there. She's 71. But she was running around the room, and she even texted Sammy this week saying her knees are feeling phenomenal and feeling really, really good. But we still had to have that conversation on let's steward this afterwards and make sure that we take care of it. So it's the same way with diet and cancer cells. Cancer cells do not have the metabolic flexibility like you have. They can't switch from fat to sugar, but you do, right? It's because cancer cells are an imitation. They are not made in the image of God. You are made in the image of God. So they don't have the fullness that we have, even though they come in our body and try to grow in our body and act like our own cells while stealing, you know, really important nourishment from the rest of our cells. So what does this mean? It means that if we can start to lower the amount of sugar and excess carbohydrates from our body, the cancer cells will starve and die off. A really great book that has a lot of examples of people getting rid of type 2 diabetes and cancer through a fasting lifestyle is The Complete Guide to Fasting by Dr. Jason Fung. The Complete Guide to Fasting by Dr. Jason Fung. Phenomenal book. It's got pictures, it's got testimonial stories. He's a believer too, so he's got like a hint of that in there in certain places. But fasting is God's original healing technology. So when we go in and we look at how can we, stop the cancer, we look at, well, let's pull back on this excess carbohydrates. The cancer cells have an inability to respond under extreme environments like normal cells do, one of those being an absence of their only fuel source, which is sugar. Cancer cells respond to this extreme stress by an increase in oxidative stress, damage to their own DNA, and eventually the cancer cells die when they don't get the sugar they need. So some studies on this one too. Science Translational Medicine show that intermittent fasting can not only kill cancer cells, but can also protect the normal cells from the harmful side effects of chemotherapy drugs. The Journal of Aging and Development did an investigation of eating patterns on lymphoma, a group of blood cancers. When they compared the group that practiced intermittent fasting for 4 months to the group that ate freely for 4 months, it was insane. The fasting group actually had 0 incidence of cancer, while the free eating group had 33%. The teratogenesis, carcinogenesis, and mutagenesis showed that intermittent fasting actually blocked the development of precancerous cells in the body, preventing cancer formation in the first place. And this one was specifically focused on liver cancer inside of rats. So a final summary on cancer with fasting is that fasting is a gift from God, not only for healing the body, by releasing toxic body fat, but also healing one of the most deadly diseases that we're currently facing in the 21st century. So with the effect that fasting has on cancer prevention and treatment, its healing power is evident. And it makes me think of Isaiah 58 when it talks about how when we go after a righteous fast, healing will abound, right? That is one of the promises inside of Isaiah 58. And so with this, healing was written from the very beginning on fasting. A little bit more, I'm just going to dig into this because I'm really feeling, is this helpful for you guys? Okay, cool. So fasting builds new brain cells, and a lot of this is stuff that we've talked about here in class, but this just kind of gives more of the science-y stuff on it. This is really fun to talk about because it blows a lot of people's minds that fasting can actually build new brain cells. One word that we want to bring up is neuroplasticity. So this is a term that researchers use to describe the brain's ability to form new neural connections throughout our lives. Neuroplasticity allows nerve cells to heal after injury or disease. It's basically like how flexible and adaptable are the neural connections in the body. How well adjusted to change are they? Axonal sprouting, a part of neuroplasticity where undamaged axons grow new nerve endings to reconnect brain cells who've been injured. So if you don't know what an axon is, it's basically a part of different nerve cells where out of that, the actual neural connections will start to grow, right? So what happens is with these axons, from them, you can think of them almost like the root of a tree. The fruit starts to come out when we fast, right? The connections start to come out, creating new nerve endings to reconnect brain cells who've been injured. Also, you think of your hands, right? Being able to get rid of the numbness in the hands. Part of that could be from some of the fasting work that you've been doing. There's other aspects that do play into that, especially with movement and diet, but it's an important thing to look at. So fasting builds these new brain cells, neurotropic factors. These are proteins that need to be present for the brain and nervous system to go through neuroplasticity, which is increasing the strength of your neural cells and to heal nerve cells and even create new brain cells. So brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is BDNF, right, is extremely important. So this is, if neurotrophic factors are important for healing nerve cells, BDNF is that same process that is now happening inside of the brain. It is a very important hormone that as it starts to increase, the brain starts to heal and create new life inside of the brain. So BDNF is really important for creating new brain cells. This special neurotropic factor actually activates brain stem cells in order to create new brain cells in the body. They often talk about fasting being a powerful tool for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. Because what does it do? It prevents the aging of the brain when you start to fast, and it also starts to build up the mind as well. It's kind of crazy that a lot of the issues we find, Alzheimer's is specifically called type 3 diabetes in some medical networks, because they notice the direct chain of events that just happens as you keep feeding the body with some of these things. We end up having some of these issues. I do not think we were designed to be eating food all day long, every single day. Is it A-okay to have a 16-hour eating window? Absolutely, right? We were made to also fast and feast. Paul talks about how we need to be comfortable both with an empty stomach and with a full stomach. I do think modern technology coming in and having refrigeration so we can eat more is a gift from God. This now means that we can feed people in different villages. We can make sure that this is a tool set for how we actually fight world hunger, but we can also notice that it has some negative effects too, which means we can eat all day long. Rather than having to go kill the animal, cook it, and we just have dinner, and maybe we had a little bit of leftovers from the other day, we now have food all day long. And so it feeds certain diseases in the body. So, I just splashed water in my eye. Intermittent fasting, or if you ever see me write IF up here, has been shown to increase your brain-derived neurotropic factor by 50 to 400%, just by condensing your eating into an 8-hour window. The hippocampus, where long-term memories and spatial navigation parts are housed, is shown to have a ton of neuroplasticity when practicing intermittent fasting. So this can improve your spatial learning, which means your ability to learn new exercises, pattern discrimination, contextual memory, and mood regulation. It was also shown to reverse osteoporosis, but nobody really wants to talk about that. This simply means intermittent fasting can also help to increase your bone density. We go back into the HGH increase, and it starts to make a lot of sense here. Intermittent fasting effects on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. These are linked directly to critically low levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. I think of my stepfather, who I was talking about at the beginning of the class. He has Parkinson's and type 2 diabetes. My mom was sharing his recent diet is basically the man will go through half a loaf of bread in one day, right? He's just craving bread all the time. White bread, sourdough, whatever it might be. The Parkinson's, the diabetes is feeding off of the excess carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not evil. We love beans, we love lentils, we love fresh home-cooked bread, we love fruits, we love vegetables. Carbohydrates are good. We love honey, we love maple syrup, we love fresh cane sugar. All these things are great. Bananas, amazing, but we want to bring an awareness of when it's excess, right? It's above what you're doing. And a good number for carbohydrates is, if you're looking at grams, if you're a pretty active person, usually around 1 gram of carbohydrates per pound of your current body weight is a really good place that you can kind of hang out around. If you're more active, you go to 1.5 to 2 times your own body weight. Like when I'm training really hard, I'll be eating at least 350 to 200 grams of carbohydrates a day and feeling really, really good. All blood markers are feeling great. But if I'm not eating as much or I'm not training as much, I pull that back, right? To around, I weigh like 190 pounds. I'll pull that back to, about 200 grams of carbs a day. So it's when we start to eat like athletes, but we're not training like athletes. And this is where the over dependence on carbohydrates comes in. There's one thing I want to show in here too as we talk about this, and then I'm going to open up for any questions. I know it's in here somewhere. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, weekly fasting. Okay, cool. So I brought this up last week, but we're about to get ready to go into a full day fast. So one thing I'll be recommending for you guys is next week we try a full day fast. Okay, I believe on the calendar it's set for Monday or Thursday. I can't quite remember, but I'll send that out in the Telegram afterwards. I have it right here. Let me see. We are doing it on Thursday. Okay, so next Monday is just going to be a 1 meal a day, and next Thursday right here, this little blue one, is going to be a full day fast or a nomad. Nomad. One of my mentors, he would call it OMAD for 1 meal a day, nomad for like a full day fast, and then he called, like when you go 3 days or more without food, he called it a UMAD because you're just mad. You're just upset because there's no food. But when you go for that full day fast, you can do it on Thursday, and I would just recommend it. It keeps things simple and easy. You'll be here for support in the evening too. Choose either a busy day or a peacefully slow day, depending on your personality type. I find a lot of people are feeling like they want to go further in their intermittent fasting, so the full day fast is a great place to dig into, to go and get into that full day fast. If you haven't yet done a 24-hour fast, I recommend you do that one first. Next week we have it set up on Monday for you to do that. I've also found for a lot of people that 2 24-hour fasts a week is a really enjoyable experience for rapid fat loss while feeling like you're not restricting yourself too much. And so I'll get into why this works right here. So I've given this example a couple of times in class, but let's say that you need to eat 2,000 calories every single day to lose weight. I'm just using that for easy math. Yours may be higher or lower. That's 14,000 calories at the end of the week. So you have 2,000 calories a day planned to eat. If you were to do just a 24-hour fast twice a week where you only ate one meal and it was 1,000 calories, you would now end your week with 12,000 calories instead of 14,000 calories. So if you stay at 12,000, you'll be able to come in at lower calories for the entire week and lose weight a little bit quicker. So even though 14,000 calories may have been your calorie deficit number, If you wanted to do a little bit more rapid fat loss, you would say, hey, on Monday and Thursday, I'm going to do a 1 meal a day while still fueling my body on those other days. I'm not going to neglect it. I'm not going to, try to string this along and do it for every day of the week, but you strategically place it a few days apart like that. It can help to, number one, like you experienced, April, like you sleep a little bit better. You find maybe I don't need, to eat as much in the evening times. Today, I did my 1 meal a day and I actually just did lunch, right? And that was a really enjoyable experience for me. Now, as I'm winding down in the evening, I feel really nice. So like you can do your 1 meal a day for breakfast, right? You can do your 1 meal a day for lunch. You can do your 1 meal a day for dinner. It's just all, you got to play with it. See what feels good for you. But we can see how this right here with the more weekly perspective, you can see, oh, this really does help me to lose body fat a little bit quicker. And just to give an example here, if you guys are math nerds on this, 3,500 calories equals 1 pound of body weight. So if we're already in a calorie deficit at 14,000 calories. So let's just say we're losing an average of 1 pound a week by doing that. So to do that, if 3,500 calories is 1 pound of body weight, there's 7 days in a week. So you divide 3,500 by 7, you get 500. All right. So what does that mean? It means if you want to lose weight, you only need to eat 500 or lose a pound a week. You just eat 500 calories less each day than what you're burning. But that might be boring for some people. And this is where if you do this 1 meal a day like this, it gives you a little bit more variety to where you could still be in a calorie deficit here and actually eat a little bit more on your other days. I'll share on that in a second here. But we can see by you dropping your calories by 2,000 for the overall week, you've effectively added an extra half pound of weight loss for this week. So over the span of a month, you've now gone from losing 4 pounds in the month to 6, right? Over the span of, if you do this for 4 months, you've now not just lost 16 pounds, but you have lost 24, right? So it's a difference between like 15 and 25 pounds in the same work, while eating for the most part the same amount of calories on each day. Another example is you also have the option to simply just distribute the extra 2,000 calories you didn't eat onto other days. Let's say you don't want to lose fat that quickly, right? Like you actually just want to go at a more moderate pace. You could, as you see here, we now have every other day of the week is 2,400 calories instead of 2,000, except Monday and Thursday stay that 1 meal a day. And so this person, if 14,000 calories at the end of the week was losing weight for them, they could still make that possible while eating almost an extra 500 calories a day on your other days. That could be the difference between you saying, all right, for the sake of my sanity, I'm gonna have a little bit of like vanilla Bluebell ice cream at night for 300 calories. And technically it wouldn't actually hinder the weight loss because of what you're working in here. Now, do you wanna do that? That's up to you. We also have conversations on emotional eating, so these types of things are really important to keep in mind. But this just shows that like your calories don't have to be the same every single day to see results. And this method would be slightly slower for fat loss, but sometimes you just want to eat a little bit more and that's okay. So this same method can be applied with weekly full day fasts as well for extra fat loss. So here's the method showing you where you would eat back your extra 2,000 calories on Tuesday and Friday following a full day fast on Monday. So let's say you didn't eat anything on Monday, you had 0 calories, you could add that extra 1,000 on Tuesday and Friday and still be able to lose some weight. So it gives you a little bit more room to where you're like, okay, the next day I actually can eat a little bit more. That is normal to be hungrier after like a full day fast and eat a little bit more like that. If you go for 3 days, you don't want to 2 to 3 days, you don't really want to pile on a lot of food afterwards. But a full day fast, as you get more and more used to it, you can eat more the next day and still be totally fine and still be losing weight. So you get to play with how you actually want to distribute this, but weight loss is more so about your weekly calories rather than your daily calories. And even here, full day fast, you could also just evenly distribute all the calories from the day that you didn't eat onto the other days. And now you're still losing weight while eating more food on the other days. So do you see how fasting can be your friend for whatever lifestyle you want to live, right? It's not the only way for it, but it can help you out in your own things. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there and just open up for anyone who has any questions on some of the stuff. Today was a little more of the sciencey stuff on everything, so a little bit different than some of the things that we've done beforehand. But if you have any questions on the fasting, now's your guys' time to bring it up, or comments, concerns.
In the seminar, I think it was you or Nicholas mentioned the 2-day, like a full 2-day reset something in the brain.
Yeah, it's a dopamine. It resets the dopamine processes in the body.
Caught my attention.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So we actually had someone do that afterwards. They just let me know that they did, a 2-day fast to feel that out. And so it's kind of like if you find yourself always craving a certain food at a certain time. Let's say like you're trying to limit caffeine. Let's say you're trying to cut out, alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, any of these things right here. But like the physical cravings feel really hard, or even sugar. A 2-day fast resets all of your biological dopamine triggers, right? So some of these things are just like built in. Your body's gotten used to, hey, 12 o'clock, we have our second or third cup of coffee, right? Every day at 8 p.m., I know it's time for dessert. And I know where the cookies are hidden, right? Like I'm gonna go get them. It's not even like conscious anymore. It's like there's something physical in the body. Yeah, so I believe he'd mentioned it was a 40-hour fast, which is like just a little bit, it goes into 2 days. But yeah, 2-day fast is a great way to reset everything. I really like 2 days. I actually personally prefer it over like a 3-day fast. I find it's a lot more applicable for people to get into, and you get a lot of the bang for the buck, but a little bit earlier. And again, you guys have heard me talk about this. It's like when you go into a longer fast, I encourage you to bring questions to the Lord, like conversations you want to go on. But God doesn't hide his face from his children. So you can have that conversation just over one lunch. You can have that conversation. It's the same way like, you guys are married. You can have that conversation in 1 hour, right? And like it solves everything. So it's not like you have to hide from it or feel like it has to be postponed larger than it needs to be. So 2 days is a really good sweet spot for a lot of biological effects and just great conversations too. Cool. Yeah.
I guess it's a science question.
Okay.
Related to calories. Two questions. Do you get into reading food labels?
We actually did that last week. We did that last week, but we've got the recording for you. Yeah. Did you get the chance to see that one we put in?
I got a chance to look at part of it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was all that we did last week. It's okay. What questions do you have on food labels?
Okay, calories. I noticed on many of those you have calories with the lowercase c,
Yeah.
and there's also the calories with the capital C.
What do you mean by that? Is that just,
Okay.
yeah.
A science teacher told me this.
Okay.
I wanted to kind of see if you had heard of this or knew about this. But they were talking about food labels and how our food is designed to, kind of get you to buy it thinking that it's less calories than
Yeah.
it is. But she said if it's a lowercase c and you see the number after it, that's the actual calories. But if you see the capital C and you see the number after it, say it's a capital C and it's 1,200 calories. She said really it's not 1,200 calories. Add 3 more zeros when you see the capital C.
Yes, I have not heard that in so long.
What do you know on it, Sammy?
So calories, the unit is, there's a calorie and then there's kilocalories, the same way.
Oh, yeah.
Kilograms.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so another way to write calories, shorthand would be CAL, but kilocalories is CAL.
Okay.
And so that's what she's talking about. I forgot that there's a capital and lowercase c, but that capital C,
She said a capital C was
Stands-
actually more calories.
I think that stands for the K. So it's like, it would be someone capitalizing.
I've seen the
grams.
Ks. Yeah, the capital Ks on food labels.
It'd be like someone capitalizing grams, meaning kilograms, versus actual small grams with a lowercase g.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's why I asked you about
I
reading
love that.
food
I
labels.
completely forgot.
And it was a science teacher that told me, that's why I said it's a science
Yeah.
question, so I wasn't sure how familiar
But
that
you didn't
was.
mean to do the capital
No, that was probably just me, like, just typoing and changing it.
I have that
Zero
backwards.
calories is zero.
Yeah. 0 to, yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got that backwards. 1 kilocalorie, that's the smaller unit, is one
Oh,
calorie. And then, I'm sorry. Whoa, okay. 1 kilocalorie equals 1 capital. So no, we were correct. And 1 capital calorie equals 1,000
Yes.
small
Okay,
calories. So we had it
I
right.
think I've seen, like, on European and Asian food labels, I think I've seen the capital K more often when I've been overseas.
Start looking for, I never looked.
Because
for
I'm
that.
like, I'm keep looking for lowercase c's and I keep seeing these capital C's. I'm like, wait a minute.
The one thing I think on that, though, is, like, and this is just from counting calories for so long now, it would be kind of hard, like, if it is that way, and I think of, like, 100 versus, like, 1,000 calories, it's kind of easy to tell, like, what's 100 calories and what's 1,000. Does that make sense? Like a banana is 100 calories,
It's not 1,000.
but it's not 1,000, right? And a lot of things aren't 1,000 per serving. So I definitely need to personally look into that a little bit more so, but I don't know fully if that's how every food label would be with it. Yeah. I think in that area they might be a little bit more honest
Interesting.
than others. Yeah.
So I'm gonna pay attention to that a little bit more and get back.
Yeah. I got to dig in.
Interested to know.
Yeah, what's up, Pam?
I have a question about exercise.
Yeah.
I guess logically, for a lot of people, after a really good, intense workout, they're hungry. For me, it reduces my appetite, and I'm kind of like, that seems the opposite of what I would expect.
Mm.
But like after the walk, when we came back to the seminar, I asked Cassandra how were the tacos, and she said they're good. And I said, well, here's a banana. I guess I'll eat that. She said, you haven't eaten anything? I said, no, I haven't eaten anything today. I'm not really hungry. So, but I did have a banana. But I thought, is that kind of odd for intense exercise to reduce your appetite?
I would say more often than not, intense exercise usually does increase the appetite. But, there will be times where I'll be 24, 36 hours into a fast, and it's like the one thing that I know will actually decrease my appetite is just moving, because it's kind of like the distraction piece. It's like it just gets you thinking in a new way. And so it could just be helpful in the way that it gets your brain thinking in a new route. Like you may not have even been hungry beforehand. It might have just been more the mind was like, I should eat. And then the movement got you grounded back into reality a little bit more so to where you weren't hungry.
I agree with that. I also think what might happen is that if you don't normally push at a certain level of intensity, the body and it adjusting to the new exercise, its first thought is not going to be to eat. It's going to be to recover from the activity. And so if you're hitting new levels that you've never done before, when I think of people who want to eat after workouts, it's people whose bodies, they live there a little bit more often. Their body's more familiar with that. And so it's like, okay, now that I've adjusted, I need those calories in order to do what I do. But I know for me, whenever I first started hitting intensity, it's almost like my stomach was a little bit nauseous. Everything was just kind of, that was the last thing I wanted to do. I just wanted to go more so lay down and relax and rest and digest. So I think also too, the more muscle you have when you start doing more strength training, that's when that, and I say strength training, more of like an intense style strength training. That's when the body starts calling for calories in a way it's hard to describe, but it's like that hungry, high metabolism burning, I need something right now kind of feeling.
Got it. Leg day,
Yeah.
I ate pizza that day.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. It's like, it's not even from the stomach, it's like from the muscles. It's just like hungry
Got it.
for energy, so
And I wonder too, when you get overheated, you don't wanna eat, you wanna drink.
that part.
You don't wanna thirst.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
It got overheated, to me, I don't want food, I want something to drink, but if it's
Yeah.
To
when
like
the
cool
intensity,
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll play with that. That's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions, guys? Was bringing out the numbers and the fancy science terms helpful for you guys today?
Yes.
Okay.
I think, so, I think, well, just the statistics and how just through the information over and over and over again, saying that, how disease and stuff like that all feeds off of sugar,
Mm-hmm.
and how our body is a hybrid burner, which is
Mhm.
really neat to know that, and cancer can't do that.
Yeah.
So, because for me, fasting was always shoved as a spiritual, like mountaintop
Mm-hmm.
type of experience, and it can be. I'm not saying it can't be. But to hear the other information
Yeah.
of the resets and all the things that are happening physiologically in our body kind of makes it, well, this sounds like it's worth doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, no, not that a mountaintop experience, spiritual experience it's worth doing too.
Yeah.
But you don't have to mix and match, you get both.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so important, especially like that's kind of like we need to evangelize in the church community itself, because everyone knows like there's spiritual benefits to it, but it's also knowing that it heals the body is super powerful. And then there's less of the, I just call it Christian guilt of like, okay, I need to fast to please the Lord, right? It's like, no, but what if this is actually just like, oh, I need to sweep my floors because like my house will be clean, and like there's good processes in there. I sweep the floors so that way like infection doesn't come in and bacteria can like leave, right? So yeah, I really like that perspective. Thanks for sharing that, Larry. Yeah, awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on in today. Next week, be preparing for that full day fast. Will be on Thursday. You are more than welcome to do it any day of the week that feels best for you. I'm just giving you some leeway to do it on Thursday so you can come into class, have something to do to keep your focus on. Monday, 1 meal a day to help to be able to prepare. Beforehand on Wednesday, it'll help to cut back on carbohydrates slightly and replace them with more fats. Eat an avocado or two on that day to help you feel a little bit better. Cook something in some coconut oil, maybe you've never done before, and just add in a little bit of those extra fats in that way. Brazil nuts, walnuts, cashews, almonds, having some of those to snack on could be a great substitution there too. And then we'll just get into the full day fast. Does everyone feel pretty good for that? For next week? Feel pretty solid? Okay. I think you guys are gonna crush it. Be really fun. I'm gonna encourage you guys too, when you go into that fast, take the time, grab your journal, and write out, what do I want to talk with God to about during this fast? And just let it be simple, let it be easy, and just like have a little bit of an agenda of what you're doing as you go into it, and just say, what do I want to get clarity on? What questions do I have? And so that way, whether it be on your lunch break, whether it be on dinner time, you just have 10 minutes, you can go over some of those things and just be really intentional as you go into it to, again, sweep the floors, wipe the countertops, just make sure that you're not forgetting anything as you go into this fast. So it'll be a really good time for that. Next week, we'll dig in a little bit more on elimination diets. So we'll talk about the ketogenic diet and other diets like that, keto, carnivore, vegan, all that stuff for weight loss. And we'll also be sharing what would be one of the better strategies for doing the low carb days before we do a longer extended fast in about 1, 2, 3 weeks. And we'll go from there, guys. Cool. Can you cut the video, Sammy?